Good afternoon, everyone. So excited for you all to join us today at our third virtual Soapbox. My name is Michelle Wilson. I'm the Chief Operations Officer here at Women Engage. As many of you all may know, Georgia is currently in a state legislative cycle, and sign and die, the last day of that legislative session, is this Friday, April 4th. Oftentimes during the legislative session, there's a lot of things that are happening that are sometimes not able to be determined. And sometimes it can be very difficult for folks to take time off throughout their days to attend committee hearings or attend sessions, or even just to stay up to date with the many things that are going on our floor. So that's why we decided to have the virtual Soapbox, to have a place that is accessible and amenable to amplify the things that are going on in the state capitol, and to hear directly from people who are impacted by some of the potential policies that could be passed, whether they are harmful or helpful for our everyday cycle. And so that's why here at Women Engage since 2014, we've been embarking on this work that's deeply rooted in integrated voter engagement. That means empowering our community members around issues that matter most to them, to then civically participate both at the ballot box and beyond. And this is one of those opportunities. This is our time to hold legislators accountable to the needs of our community members. And that's why we're so excited to be joined by our partners today, Black Voters Matter and Amplify Georgia Collaborative. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first partner, Black Voters Matter, whose goal is to increase power in marginalized, predominantly Black communities. Their core 5 beliefs is the key to effective civic engagement and community power is understanding, respecting, and supporting local infrastructure. Black Voters Matter not only on election day, but on the 364 days between election days as well. This means that we must support individuals and organizations that are striving to obtain social justice throughout the year. Black Voters Matter everywhere. including rural communities and smaller cities and towns that are often ignored by candidates, elected officials, and political parties and the media. In order for Black voters to matter, we must utilize authentic messaging, which speaks to our issues, connects with our hopes, and affirms our humanity. The leadership, talent, and commitment demonstrated by Black women in particular must receive recognition and, more importantly, investment in order to flourish and multiply. Their issues of focus this legislative session include criminal justice, voting rights, healthcare, and environmental justice. And so I'm excited to introduce our first speaker today, Dr. Melanie Calhoun, who is a state organizing manager with Black Voters Matter, to share some words and thoughts about the things that are going on from their perspective.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
Doing good. So glad that you're here.
Absolutely. It is a pleasure and honor to be here with you this morning. All righty. So, I like I said, I appreciate the opportunity to speak. There are several things that we at Black Voters Matter and our partners on the ground have been working on, not just during legislative session, but 365 days out of the year. But in particular to legislative session, there are a few bills that are of major concern, such as the Georgia House Bill 397, the recent wave of anti-DEI or diversity, equity, and inclusion legislation. These measures represent a direct assault on the democratic principles of inclusivity and equal representation that are foundational to our society. House Bill 397, it introduces several principles that threaten to disenfranchise, and particularly within the Black community, by imposing stricter regulations against absentee ballots, limiting the availability of drop boxes. The bill creates unnecessary barriers to voting, and we should be reducing and eliminating barriers to voting. These changes disproportionately affect Black voters who have historically faced systemic obstacles exercising our right to vote, such as measures not only to undermine the progress we've made towards equitable voting access, but it also erodes the public trust in our electoral system. Furthermore, the recent push for the ban of DEI programs in our education institutions, it's deeply troubling. Diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives are vital in fostering environments where individuals, regardless of their background, have the opportunity to succeed. Efforts to dismantle these programs signal a regression from the values of equity, equality, and justice. Civil rights organizations have rightly pointed out that such anti-DEI measures are an affront to the fundamental principles of equal opportunity and justice upon which our nation was founded. We remain committed to advocating for policies that promote inclusivity and promote and protect the rights of all citizens. We call upon our Georgia lawmakers to reject HB 395, and we encourage our community members to call upon their legislators, their senators, their representatives in their districts to express their voices and let their voices be heard. Any legislation that seeks to marginalize communities under the guise of electoral reform or educational policy needs to be rejected if it does not benefit our communities. Our democracy thrives when every voice is heard and every individual is valued, not just those that can afford it. We urge Georgians across the state, I always say from Valdosta to Atlanta, Muskogee to Savannah, Black Voters Matter, but we encourage all Georgians, regardless of whether you're in the metro or whether you're in rural Georgia, to stand up and oppose these regressive measures and continue to fight for a more just and equitable society. The other legislation that we've been concerned about this legislative cycle, as I mentioned, is SB 175, which seeks to prohibit the use of ranked choice voting in all state elections. This legislation represents a step backward in the ongoing effort to create a more inclusive and representative democratic process. Ranked choice voting, it empowers voters by allowing them to rank candidates in order of preference, ensuring that elections outcomes are more accurately reflective of the collective of the electorate. By eliminating the need for costly runoffs, the ranked choice voting can lead to an increased participation and engagement, particularly among communities that have historically faced barriers to voting. Prohibiting ranked choice voting through this piece of legislation undermines these benefits and restricts the ability of local jurisdictions to adopt voting methods that best serve their population, their communities. This move disproportionately impacts Black voters and others marginalized communities by maintaining electoral systems that have historically diluted our political voting power. So as I said before, I encourage community members from, the rural areas, from the coastal area, from the metro area, to call upon your legislators and make sure your voice is heard. Make sure that your voice is counted in this election, in every election. We know we have an election coming up on June 17th for the PSC. So I am actually proud to be able to introduce a young lady that is with us today. She is one of our awesome, amazing Savannah partners with ladder strategies and solutions. She is doing some amazing work, and her name is Shamika Simmons. So I'm glad that she is with us here today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shamika. I am here from Ladder Strategies and Solutions. And I'm just ecstatic to be here today with you all. Currently, we all know the state of America, but what's going on in Georgia, as Dr. Calhoun has stated, is what we're working on is the PSC, the Public Service Commission, and trying to wake folks up to understand the importance of the Public Service Commission, how they represent us, and the decisions that they make, they affect us with our electricity. Energy burden is really, really on everybody's hearts and minds, and energy burden can lead to mental illness, and it can also lead to homelessness. And so right now we're trying to, mobilize the communities, give them the education that they need on the Public Service Commission. What that entails, what they do, how it can affect us for the future, how it's affecting us now. Georgia Power has had 6 rate hikes since 2023, and they're going for another rate hike. Representation is important. Public Service Commission representation is very important, and to know about it and to get out there and vote is important, and to be engaged is really important. A lot of people don't understand how important representation is, especially the Public Service Commission at this time. And that's all for now.
Thank you both so much for so much valuable information. Shout out to Dr. Melanie Calhoun and Mika Simmons for sharing those amazing words of wisdom. We want to make sure that folks are aware that you need to continue to check your voter status using mvp.sos.ga.gov. That's the official site provided through the Secretary of State website in order to make sure that you are registered at your current address so you can participate in these very key elections. These elections are really important, especially around the Public Service Commission, which we understand is something that a lot of people are not aware of. I know in the work that Women Engaged has done, we have seen folks who believe that a lot of their utilities and stuff stop just at their mayor or their city council, not understanding the role in which the Public Service Commission has there. So make sure to stay connected with Black Voters Matter on this issue by texting We Matter at 25225. It's also on the screen below, as you'll continue to see other relevant information there. So make sure to continue to see that as well. And also noting that they are also collecting healthcare stories. So make sure to contact Dr. Melanie Calhoun at melanie@blackvotersmatterfund.org for more information. And so we thank you all so much for joining us with that important information. And so we're going to now segue over to our other partner, Amplify Georgia Collaborative, who is doing some amazing work around reproductive justice, health, and rights. Amplify Georgia Collaborative brings together reproductive health rights and justice organizations, community leaders, and allies to expand abortion access and advance reproductive justice in Georgia through policy change, culture shift, and education. We work towards a Georgia where all people can make decisions around their bodies, for their families, and their communities, free from stigma, shame, or state and interpersonal violence. And so for our first speaker, I want to bring up Allison Glass, who is the State Organizing Director with Amplify Georgia Collaborative. Hello, Allison.
Hey, Michelle. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so glad to be on to be able to talk about the work that Amplify and our collaborative partners have been up to this legislative session, which thank goodness is almost over. So first, just a little bit about, Amplify is absolutely looking big picture and looking at all of the issues that are impacting people's bodily autonomy and ability to access reproductive health care. And we are so disheartened that this legislative session, our legislators, excuse me, have chosen to again put forward so many attacks on the trans community. And it is egregious. It is creating problems when there are zero problems. And when we really needed our legislators to be using this very short period of time, these 40 days of our legislative session, to actually address the issues that our communities in Georgia are actually facing. And so I just want to say that off the bat, there are still several anti-trans other bills that are targeting the LGBTQ community that are still moving this last week of session. So I'm definitely encouraging folks to plug in and speak up for trans rights. We also, of course, within Amplify, really center abortion access as a part of a really critical piece of people's overall bodily autonomy and be able to access full reproductive justice. So that's what I'm going to focus in on a little bit today, as well as a related issue about anti-abortion centers here in Georgia. So just to level set a little bit on the abortion landscape in Georgia, 95% of Georgia counties don't have an abortion clinic, and over 50% of Georgia counties don't have and can't access OBGYN care. And so in a state like Georgia, where we have such abysmal maternal mortality rates, we absolutely cannot separate abortion access from maternal health care and prenatal care, because they are often very much interlinked. And we're seeing with the criminalization of people having miscarriages that we really do ourselves a disservice by trying to separate these issues. And in Georgia, we are facing some serious legal barriers to abortion access, which we know will cause harm to people who have wanted pregnancies as well and might experience pregnancy loss. So currently in Georgia, we know that we have a gestational age ban of around 6 weeks, meaning that people cannot legally access abortion in Georgia beyond around 6 weeks, except for some very limited exceptions. Even before the 6-week ban, we had around a 22-week abortion ban. We know Georgia also has state mandated medically inaccurate and biased information that is required that providers give to patients. We know that individuals and institutions are able to refuse care to people. We have state mandated waiting periods and so much more. However, 80% of Georgians believe that, regardless of what they believe personally, that the government should not interfere in our decisions around abortion, and that we should instead trust pregnant people to make the decisions that are right for them. But unfortunately, the current policies in Georgia don't reflect the will of the people. And so that's why many reproductive health rights and justice organizations came together actually back in 2019 to start working on the Reproductive Freedom Act. And so we were really pleased. We have continued to work on this legislation. It is the long-lasting, comprehensive legislation that our communities need for people to really be able to access their own reproductive decisions free from government interference. So this year we again, we call it the RFA, the Reproductive Freedom Act, and we refiled it this year. It was HB 598, led by Representative Shay Roberts, an incredible advocate that we have in the House. And in the Senate, it's Senate Bill 246, carried by Senator Nan Orrock, another incredible advocate. And we know that this legislation, we first introduced it in 2023. We know this is a long-term campaign because it is the model legislation, like the foundational solution. And what it would do is it would actually repeal all of the medically unnecessary restrictions that are in place right now. But not only would it repeal all of the abortion bans and other legal restrictions, it's actually also proactive in that it would expand real abortion access to make it easier for young people to access abortions when they need it, allow for insurance providers to cover abortions, which right now they legally cannot. And that is a big barrier to care. And then the RFA also enshrines our rights, both to be able to have abortions, but also to enshrine our right to access contraception, and allows people to make their own decisions about their bodies and their families. So this is a really important piece of legislation. Again, we are needing to really help to educate our lawmakers about this as the solution that Georgians need. We know that this is long-term work, but it was something really, really important that we, along with our campaign partners, who I also just want to shout out right now, we have so many incredible campaign members who are also pushing this work, including you all at Women Engaged. So grateful for you all, as well as Feminist Women's Health Center, Sister Song, Reproductive Freedom for All, Spark, ARC Southeast, Color of Change, Faith in Public Life Action, NAPOF, the Atlanta chapter, DSA, URGE, and Sister Love. So the community in Georgia is really coming together to say this is what we need in our state. And we know that without these types of real protections, people in Georgia, pregnant people in Georgia are, going to continue to suffer consequences. We know that abortion is healthcare, full stop. And everybody has to be able to make their own decisions about their bodies and their futures on their own terms and without government interference. We know that these bans continue to have really negative impacts on our providers. The more bans that come through, the more criminalization that comes through, the more that providers are having to face serious possible repercussions through criminalization, right? And we know that can have, a deadly impact on pregnant people. I would be remiss to not bring up Amber Thurman and Candy Miller. And these are just two of the names that we know of Black women who were mothers of young children who could not get the health care that they needed, and unfortunately died as a result of these racist and deadly abortion bans. We know that these bans disproportionately harm Black women, gender expansive people, people who are struggling to make ends meet. So that is why we need the Reproductive Freedom Act. Thank you, Michelle, for putting some calls to action along the bottom of the screen. Even though we know it's going to be, we're going to have to change who is in the seats at the legislature. So speaking of getting out to vote, it's absolutely critical that we fill those seats under the Golden Dome with people who are also about justice and bodily autonomy and dignity, so that we can get to a place to be able to pass legislation like the Reproductive Freedom Act. Another issue that is really important and related to this is an issue and a campaign that Amplify and our partners, including Spark, Reproductive Justice Now, who has been leading this campaign, ARC Southeast, Sister Love, and URGE are all partnering on, is helping to educate our community. And also this year, for the first time, we introduced legislation around fake clinics that are across our state in Georgia. And these are anti-abortion centers. They are also commonly known as crisis pregnancy centers, but these are actually fake clinics. And Georgia has 95 of these fake clinics in our state, compared to 13 real abortion clinics across the state. And these fake clinics actually spread misinformation. They prey on people who are seeking real reproductive health care. They will actually draw people in thinking and put things online to make themselves look like they are actual legit medical facilities, when they often do not have a real medical provider on staff. So they're actually very, very dangerous to pregnant people. And so we launched this campaign, Fake Clinics Suck, several years ago. And again, this year we introduced legislation for the first time, knowing that when someone is pregnant, they need real evidence-based healthcare. They need to be able to trust their providers, that they're getting accurate information. Their information has to remain private, right? They expect honesty from their providers. But unfortunately, that does not happen in fake clinics, because they are they're unlicensed. They are unregulated, because they often don't have a real trained medical provider on staff. And so people get misled, and they often get medically inaccurate information. And to top it all off, our state actually gives these fake clinics $2 million a year in public funding to continue to provide not services, right? And what we are here to say is that Georgians deserve real health care, not this deception. And so we introduced actually 3 pieces of legislation this year to expose these fake clinics. HB 488 and Senate Bill 196 is the Pregnancy Center Fraud Prevention Act, and it does just that. It tries to mitigate the fraud that is committed online in their advertising, when you see brochures, so that they actually have to be honest about who they are and what their intentions are. A second bill that we introduced is the End Misuse of Public Funding Act, to end that $2 million per year investment of taxpayer funds into these fake clinics. It is abysmal that we are giving this money when, Georgia refuses to expand Medicaid, when so many people, like I said earlier, don't even have access to a real OBGYN. And finally, we introduced a resolution, House Resolution 274 and Senate Resolution 207, the Fund Healthy Pregnancies and Parenting Resolution, it's an urging resolution that would shift that money away from these anti-abortion centers to actual programming that improves maternal health care and actually supports new parents. So I am so happy now to introduce my colleague in this fight, Julia Callahan, who is based out of Macon, Georgia, is a mother of 2 toddlers, is a small business owner, and is the co-founder of Middle Georgians for Choice. Julia, so happy to invite you into this conversation.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me and letting me share my story. So yes, hello, my name is Julia Del Callahan. I'm a mother of two. I'm a small business owner. And since my pregnancy, I'm a reproductive justice activist based out of Macon, Georgia. My husband and I found out that I was pregnant in July of 2021. I miscarried one of my twins 3 days later. In all of our ultrasounds, we were still able to see our twin that passed, and we were heartbroken. My pregnancy Medicaid only covered a limited number of ultrasounds, which means any more had to be paid out of pocket. And at 7 months pregnant, I asked around in my community and around my church where I could get a new ultrasound. And a friend told me that I could go to the Colby Center and get one for free. So I made an appointment. I was so excited to see my miracle baby girl. That day, I walked into the center, sat down and filled out new patient paperwork, chatted with who I thought were nurses, and got escorted back to a room to have my ultrasound done. Two women came in and introduced themselves. One of the women explained to me that she was training a new ultrasound tech who would also be conducting ultrasounds at the center. I said, great, and gave them my belly. They gave to me what resembled an anatomy scan. We looked at all the fingers and toes and the face of my baby girl. As they started to look at my baby's organs, they got quiet on me. I could feel the mood in the room shift. They said to me, the baby's kidneys are full of fluid. Do you have an OBGYN? They printed a long ultrasound and sent me in shock and literal tears to my OBGYN. I had such a physical reaction. I remember opening my door and throwing up in the parking lot. We had already lost a baby, and we desperately wanted this pregnancy. We were all terrified. I brought my ultrasound to my doctor and tearfully explained to him what was told to me at the Colby Center. He reassured me that nothing was wrong with my pregnancy and explained to me that I was in a crisis pregnancy center. I had no idea what a crisis pregnancy center was. So as soon as I got in the car, I opened their website. It said that this was a pregnancy clinic and that they provided medical care by healthcare professionals. The people had described themselves as techs and nurses. I sat in disbelief as I processed that I had been deceived by people I trusted to take care of me during one of the most vulnerable times of my life. That's when I got a Facebook message from one of the women who gave me my ultrasound, which is a huge violation of privacy that would have never happened to me in a real healthcare facility. She didn't seem to understand why I was upset. And they gave me, well, I was upset because they gave me false information about my pregnancy during a supposed training. If they were medical professionals, this would be considered malpractice. But because crisis pregnancy centers are unregulated in Georgia, there is no legal recourse for me and no way to hold these fake clinics legally accountable. The irony in all this is that they could have caused me to lose my healthy pregnancy. In Macon, Georgia, we have 3 fake clinics and 7 overall in Middle Georgia. Yet, we have 0 comprehensive reproductive healthcare centers, and we are surrounded by a maternal healthcare desert. They all have similar advertising practices, falsely claiming that they provide medical care in a region that lacks access to care. What I went through was very traumatic for myself and my husband, and I don't wish that experience on anyone. Pregnant people should not have to be worried about being deceived to get people in the door, nor should they be given inaccurate health information from non-licensed providers. So I do want to end with that my beautiful baby girl is now 3 years old and very healthy. I am very fortunate, and I am very grateful for you guys allowing me to share my story.
Thank you, Julia, so much for that amazing testimony. Thank you to all of our partners, Mika, Dr. Calhoun, Allison, for just being here today and sharing these amazing perspectives and stories and data points. And I think it really drives home a lot of the work that we do here at Women Engage is that, you know, over the years, we've been doing work talking to residents here in Georgia, asking them about increasing access to healthcare, including reproductive healthcare, and have continued to see that number rise, with a number of people who support initiatives like the Reproductive Freedom Act, the fight against crisis pregnancy centers, and also understanding too the combined efforts and concerns around access to voting, making sure that we're not perched from the voting rolls, and making sure that our voices are heard. Because oftentimes we hear the data points, but also not necessarily hearing the stories that are behind it. And we want to make sure that everybody who's listening, regardless if you are in the movement work, actively doing this work with some of us, or you're a community member who is starting a business or just has a family or just doing things in that way, that we all together can come together to advocate for the issues that matter most to us. And that your stories and your experiences hold power and can be a catalyst for change that we need to actualize the things that we need in our communities. Especially when we think about the Reproductive Freedom Act, really excited to see these type of things, that these are proactive measures, things that we can dare to dream to see that actualized here in Georgia, and knowing that our work isn't always that in a defensive manner, but can be one that continues to progress the needle on issues that matter most to us. We want to uplift the amazing work again around Black Voters Matter, and also around the points around ranked choice voting, making sure that we understand that there are different alternative ways in which we engage in the civic engagement process, and that the ways that we do that is by getting involved, connecting with community. So whether you get involved today with Black Voters Matter, Amplify Georgia Collaborative, and Women Engage, that you continue to make sure that your voices are heard in that regard. And so if there aren't any questions, you can continue to drop them in the chat. We will make sure to forward them onto our amazing partners who are here. But just want to let you all know of a couple things that are coming up in terms of the aftermath of these conversations. So Women Engage, we host our political education series, You Ask, We Answers, which is fueled by conversations that we have directly with community members about the things that are going on. Next week, Thursday, April 10th at 7 p.m., we'll be doing our legislative recap. As I mentioned, the last day of legislative session is this Friday. So if you haven't contacted your legislators, make sure to do that today. You can send them an email. You could call them. You could fax them. If you still have a fax machine, make sure that you DM them on their social media pages. If you have the ability to just show up at their office, whatever it takes to make sure that they know that you are there, that you are listening, and that they know the issues that matter most to you. But after Sign and Die, we want to know, what are the bills that passed? What are the bills that didn't? And what is that impact for our community members? Last but not least, of course, definitely honoring and uplifting that yesterday was Trans Visibility Day. And that we want to know that trans visibility is 365, and understanding that trans people deserve to not only be seen, but to be heard, to be protected, and to have access to equal rights as well. So continuing in that fight to know that we are all in this together in a very intersectional manner, ensuring that we are getting everyone equal access to healthcare, economic opportunities, education, and protecting our environment. And really honing in on the multitude of issues and how they cross paths to doing that. So I want to thank you all again for joining us. Make sure to tune in next Thursday, April 10th, for our legislative recap session right here online. You can find us on Women Engage's Facebook and Instagram pages, as well as YouTube, for any of those previous conversations, and as well as for the live conversation next week. That will be hosted by Jayla, who's our social media engagement manager. And lastly, I just want to say I thank you all so much again for tuning in. This has really been great. I'm super excited for us to have another virtual soapbox. We'll be having more throughout the year, especially for different forms of government, because we know it doesn't just stop at state. We just had our national election, and this year, on top of the Public Service Commission, there's a lot of municipal elections that are happening as well, where we can continue to hold every level of government accountable to the issues that matter most to you and I. So until we meet next time, I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and fight the power, but also continue to take care of yourself.